Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show to talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Doom Patrol. A great season premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, so first and foremost, obviously, we're picking up with the Doom Patrol doing their thing, and it's so interesting, like, we're getting the official titles now. It's like, yeah, we are officially the Doom Patrol. Rita's the one handing out everyone's nicknames of like, oh, Crazy Jane, Cyborg, Negative Man, Robot Man, but none of the team really is all about that. As, you know, Dr. Harrison is kind of analyzing everyone, so psychoanalyzing everyone. It's like, right, Rita is, you know, had failed attempts at different things, the whole actress thing, the whole being a drama teacher thing, and now she's playing the role of a team leader and of the Doom Patrol because literally no one else wanted the job, and this is an opportunity for her. Obviously, the heroism of it all is something she's been kind of struggling with for a while, but she found her kind of niche little spot. I even love Dr. Harrison being like, yeah, this little hodgepodge, misfit Justice League they just got, you know, well, not just put together, but still. And just proceeds to kind of psychoanalyze everyone with their issues. Obviously, Larry with the whole self-loathing thing. Obviously, Keeg, he wants to make it seem like him and having just Keeg is enough, but it's like, no, it still doesn't change the fact is he missed out on so much of life, and, things like, right, just having him and Keeg is enough. Then also you have Vic, who, despite being, not losing all the cybernetics, well, most of the cybernetics and stuff like that, and appearing mainly human, he still can't take that leap of faith to put himself out there because he's a little too scared to. Cliff, well, just being the simple-minded idiot he's always been, kind of, as Harrison just kind of puts that bluntly. The fact of the matter is, you also have Madame Rouge, who is trying to get Rita's forgiveness, but it's still like, right, after everything that you've done, of course you're not going to be forgiven. Even to the point, they have figured out how to maintain memories upon time travel. So I love that it's just kind of like, just casually hand wave it away, being like, yeah, we found out a way to just, between seasons, how to stop like that from erasing our memories, because it's a shitty form of time travel that ends up continuously being an issue. I didn't even think about that when I was watching Quantum Leap, just because, like, Quantum Leap has like the same circumstances of, hey, you leap, you end up kind of forgetting everything. It didn't even cross my mind to be like, oh yeah, I forgot. Doom Patrol also kind of works like that. Their form of time travel. Rouge is the only one who refuses to use the version, like their remedy, which is jellyfish, for whatever reason. I don't know if that's because the way Harrison put it was like, oh, it's like Rita somehow figured out. We still don't even know how it works. Once again, I love his hand wavy off, but it's also like, yeah, it's Doom Patrol, so you accept the hand waviness of it. Yeah, it's fucking jellyfish are somehow able to make you. I don't know if there's anything tied. I wonder if there's scientifically, like, obviously this is leading to science fiction, but I'm curious, like, is there any, like, science to be like, no, like, there's some correlation between jellyfish and memory or something like that. I wonder if they're, like, actually a scientific thing, and just, like, Doom Patrol just took it in a very, like, wild direction, but it's like, maybe there is some scientific correlation there. Maybe, maybe not. I'm most likely reading too much into it. But, either way, Rouge hopes, every time she doesn't take the jellyfish, she's hoping, like, right, it gives her a small reprieve from, like, her regrets about everything, the sisterhood of Dada. She even looks into, she has all the files from everyone that she turned over to the bureau and everything, and she's trying to look them up, but to no avail. So she doesn't even have a chance to, like, either they're dead or just lost in the world, or maybe they've hidden themselves so well, because she's using their names to look them up on search engines, but nothing pops up. So either they are dead and there's no recompense for her in that regard, or they're just laying low and there's still no recompense because she can't track them down. So she's looking for forgiveness and, a lot of self-hate on her part, and that's why it's like, right, she thinks as long as she takes everything on the chin, as she takes all of Rita's jabs and all the shit that Rita keeps shoveling in her face, that eventually Rita would forgive her. But it's like, that's not going to happen, especially, like, specifically because of Malcolm. Like, the rest of the sisterhood, yes, but specifically because of Malcolm. So I did love that. Who's the villain they ended up taking down? It's Codpiece, which I'm like, man, that guy's been getting some play lately because he was just in, if it should be the same character, because I'm like, how many characters are running around the DC with a Codpiece, like, you know? And he's making all these, like, innuendos and stuff like that. He referred to it as, like, his butter at one point in time, and Rita's like, can you just not be gross for 2 minutes? But it's like, yeah, he most recently popped up on Harley Quinn. He was in his most recent season. I don't think he had any voice lines. He was just, he's kind of like a background character to some extent. He was in, I want to say, what was it, episode 3, The Villies. So I thought that was just interesting. Obviously, the Codpiece is way bigger. And I don't know if that's supposed to be like more comic accurate. The one that's in, the one in, Harley Quinn, because obviously it's like smaller, and I even love that Rouge was able to mess with him by turning into him and made a smaller version of him. It's like, wait, are you trying to body shame me? He's like, that's pure evil. Even I wouldn't go down that route. There was also the guy with the butt cannon, which you're like, is that something from the comics too, or is that just something they made for the show? But either way, it was also kind of actually heartbreaking when Vic had to like hype him up to be like, no, you're not just an IT guy. You are the cornerstone of Codpiece's villainy. He's like, really? You think so? He's like, thanks. It's like, well, Vic was more so talking about himself through you, projecting, because he feels useless. Because, like, yeah, he's been relegated to the IT guy, and especially considering Rita kind of pushes him to the side, but it's also because, like, right, she's worried about him. He's literally the only one that's, like, a regular human now, so she's very protective of him because, like, right, I've lost too much already. I'm not going to lose any more people, you know, with everything, so you are more likely to get killed out of anyone. And I don't think I think it's probably his own insecurities keeping him from seeing things from her perspective on why she can kind of be mean and rough to him. But it's like, yeah, it's just because she cares, you know, so. But, obviously Silas and Vic were working on replacing, Cliff's arm. Obviously had been able to replace the rest of his body. It's still, as he puts it, kind of like the crappy piece of shit it's always been, but now like his arm like now has like one finger that can touch and feel, and eventually it gets spread through the rest of his arm. And I love that he was so happy about it. But Silas been like, hey, I don't want to rain on your parade, but you do realize that the first thing you're going to be touching is that oven. You're talking about you want your son to be the first, your grandson to be the first thing you touch, but it's like the oven mitt's going to be, he's like, oh, this is soft as hell, but he's like, this doesn't count, which is like, it does count, but the sentiment is still there. So the whole point is like, hey, let's go to Florida. But on the way to Florida, they ended up running into the lady, which I'm like, oh, wasn't that like the beginning of season 3 where she ended up getting like pushed down the hole? It's like, right, she watched me whiz, and then she's like, and I love Rose just like, yeah, it happened, and I just felt like it wasn't important enough to mention. So it's like, right, maybe there's a reason we kind of bumped into her. It's like, I mean, they've been traveling a while, so the fact is they just happen to bump into her now, it's interesting. It's like, right, how, I mean, I guess like, I mean, maybe, and this is something I'm curious about. Like, when they are using the ship, like, does it mean, like, underneath the hole, is the space-time continuum, like, is a time vortex or whatever still open? So that, like, yes, anything underneath the ship, like, is there always, like, does that close the moment the ship stops where it stops? Or does that mean, because I was wondering, like, yeah, she fell down the hole, but it's like, does that mean a portal, like she kind of got caught up in the time stream of it all? Is that what that's supposed to reference? Like, that's what I'm curious. Like, is it always active in the hole, or what? Did she fall in a hole, and then the next time the machine was used, she just happened to be, like, warped into it? Like, how does that work? And we have no idea where she landed, or she's still just flinging about the time stream or whatever. It's like, cool. They got knocked off course, ended up in the future, which I think it's so interesting that the Doom Patrol decided with like, oh, we're going to go 20 years into the future. It's 2042. I'm like, that's fascinating, because if you don't know anything with the Arrowverse stuff, not everything, but a lot of Arrowverse stuff like kind of clocks in like future-wise in the 40s, interestingly enough. I mean, it's for a while, because obviously, like, everything with, obviously, last season of The Flash kind of went only, the furthest they went currently was like 10 years in the future. I don't know if that's going to come up again in like in the final season, like are they going to go back to the 2040 thing, because it's a prominent time period, because right, that was kind of first introduced in like season 1 when they went to Star City 2049, and then that came right back around in like the second to last and final season of Arrow. All the future stuff was in the 2040s, and that's where the whole like Green Arrow and the Canaries like spinoff was going to be and stuff, right? So I don't know, I just thought that just interesting. I guess it's like 20 years is that good enough benchmark to be like, yeah, enough time. Like, it's characters are older, but enough time has happened, allowed for the apocalypse to happen. I thought the apocalypse was just going to be like the Immortus stuff. I didn't realize it was the butts. I think I do remember one of the butts escaping, but I didn't remember the zombie bit about like one of them being a zombie. I mean, it's like, right, I remember the Doom Patrol becoming zombies, but I didn't remember like they one of the butts that escaped, he got zombified, but maybe I kind of have a vague memory of it. Either way, it's like, yeah, you're kind of the, which I'm like, oh, how very Legends of Tomorrow of you. Well, to be fair, the Doom Patrol is very much in that same regard of like, yeah, they're kind of the reason why everything's always fucked. The Legends are the exact same way. It's like, oh, we have to kind of fix our own mistakes, and that's why they were always so excited. Like, wait a minute. The Encore situation in season 5, that's not our fault. Yeah! Because it was like the first time nothing had been a direct correlation to something they did, you know? So, the Doom Patrol is in that regard. And they see Vic, and Vic's like, whoa, is that tech? But it's like, no, it's like equipment. They kind of mimic his tech. I don't know whether it's like some part of him missed the tech and needed something to kind of mimic that, or, you know, or is it just because, like, fighting style-wise, this is what I'm more comfortable with, so... But yeah, it seems like most of the world, Cloverton ends up being the epicenter yet again for like just a lot of catastrophe and stuff. It's like, yeah, this town I just can't get enough. It's like, well, to be fair, the Doom Patrol is like kind of, you know, in the neighborhood, so it's like, yeah, that kind of always ends up being an issue. But ultimately, they see the rest of the Doom Patrol. Like, I was like, oh, the rest of the team stays in the rooms. Oh, they're all ghosts. So, it's this interesting thing where like they refuse to tell anyone anything, but it's because the whole point was to distract the Doom Patrol while present day Doom Patrol, so that future Vic could be the one that snatches up the time machine. It's like, well, because it is, time travel is what it is in the loop, it's like you can only well, I don't know, because I'm curious, is this supposed to be a no? Because yeah, I was about to say, like, did their time machine break or something like that? The fact is that they didn't have it, so they couldn't go back to change things. So things must have gotten bad during, like, for them to not be able to do that. But my point was, because it's a time loop, it's like, right, had they had to be present Doom Patrol having met a future Doom Patrol. And so like this whole thing is a cycle. So future Vic, when he's telling younger Vic, like, hey, you aren't ready to listen to what I have to say right now. I know, because I wasn't, because I was you talking to a future me, but I'm now that future me talking to a past, you know, so that, like, it's all a cycle that probably has kept going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Because it seems like currently they're the only survivors of the apocalypse. It seems like the rest of the world's kind of potentially gone. I mean, at least the town is, because Vic's like, yeah, I've checked everywhere in town, and that's why he doesn't know what's up with Rouge, because he's like, I've looked all over town, I haven't found you. Like, before stuff kicked off, you left the house because, well, she was planning on moving out, and like, Rita was all about that. So like, right, as long as I don't have to see your ugly mug, you can do whatever you want to, I don't care. I would think on some level, Rita would want to keep her around simply for the purposes of like, oh, I want to make sure you're not doing any evil stuff. It's like, but I guess it's like, right, you've already done enough damage. You've already hurt me more than, you know, there's what else could you do? So like, go ahead, fuck off, do whatever you want to. Maybe that's kind of the mentality Rita has when it comes to Rouge. I did love that, once again, Harris was saying the whole point of like, hey, maybe we should trust our past selves and tell them what not to do. And everyone would laugh, say, oh God, I can't believe you said that with a straight face. And she's like, yeah, I know, it's crazy. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, like we could trust those idiots with anything. I'm like, well, that is you, but it's like, right, who would know you better than you? And it's like, right, they've had 20 years to sit on their mistakes. So it's going to be up to, because right, we know everything that we were going through at that time, because, you know, it's like, hey, future Keeg ended up talking to baby Keeg, and we still don't know what that was about, what was kind of revealed in that conversation, because still baby Keeg still won't talk to Larry, and Larry, you know, present day Larry's like, what did I do to kind of fuck this up? It's like, for him, it's like, this is as Harrison put it, like this codependency he has. It's like, this is all he has currently, so he's like holding on and cherishing and trying not to fuck it up. But it's like, apparently I did something to fuck this up. I don't know if that was something before the death situation. What happened in that regard? Harrison went to go see Jane. It seems like she's been the one that's kind of filled the primary role, because Jane's kind of taken a back seat. And I wonder, in the time this passed, it's been like a couple months since season 3's finale. I don't know if any of the other personalities have risen to the surface at any point in time, because they're all off looking for Kay, who doesn't want to be found. And Jane's kind of taking it easy, but it's like, right, you are just kind of, you know, it happened under your watch, because, hey, you're the primary, so you out of anyone, it's even like the whole protecting Kay thing kind of doubles for you. That's the role of the primary, to really fully take over. You're supposed to be kind of the most out of anyone, the Kay substitute, so that she doesn't have to deal with things, but she's kind of retreated and run away so no one can find her in the underground. The others are looking for her, so. But future Harrison is telling present day Harrison, like, hey, like, the fact is, you want to say everything you've done was to protect Kay. It's like, if that was true, you would have, the moment you took control from Jane, you would have left behind the Doom Patrol, all of this, and gotten Kay to safety. But it's like, no, you were so focused on your work of psychoanalyzing this team, because you're like, oh my God, all the stuff I can write up about the very heavy psychological issues that this team has. It's every therapist and psychologist's wet dream is this team, you know? So. But when the time came, the present day Doom Patrol had to run away. And Vic wanted to stay behind, because for him, it's like, right, he had an opportunity to kind of prove himself. And it's like, no, I want to prove that I'm not useless. I might be human. And especially because that's where a lot of his insecurities lie right now. It's like, hey, like even Vic throwing in his, even Cliff throwing in his face, like, hey, you don't have any weapons to fight with. And his older self gave him a weapon, gave him a blade, but Rouge and Rita ended up forcing his hand and put him on the ship. And his older self left him a message. It's like, you can't have it all. And he's like, you know what? Fuck that. No, I can. And it's like, that's going to be his undoing, because it's like, right, you can't do the whole superhero thing and just be a normal human while trying to balance. It's just like, right. That's the duality that's always been the complication of any DC hero. I mean, just any, comic hero in general, is balancing the two versions of your life. But for Vic, it's like, right, you can't be like the superhero you want to be without being Cyborg. So you can't have it all. You can't want to be that hero because you need to be Cyborg to do that. But you also, so you can't, he's let like his tech and everything define him for so long that it's like, right, I want to see who I am without it. I know I want to live the life I can without it. And then, one's going to have to be sacrificed for the other. So at the end of the day, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to keep, he plans on doing both, but I think that's going to be his undoing. Hence why future Vic was like, you're not ready to hear. I wasn't ready to hear what I needed to hear at that time. Harrison goes to talk to Jane, but the moment she does, she gets dusted by Kay, which Kay was like, yo, leave me alone, don't try and find me. So Jane's back as primary, but I'm assuming Harrison's dead. I don't know if she can come back or not. Because, it's like, right, Kay did construct them on a psychological level, so it would make sense that she has the power to easily kill every one of her personalities if she wants to, which makes you wonder, like, are we going to find out the numbers have dwindled drastically? We've seen, like, personalities die and get murked. So it's not like this is the first time that's come up, but I wonder, like, is Kay going to kill the others anytime they get close to her? Because, you know, I think a lot of her fears and stuff, because, like, especially because Jane wakes up with the puzzle pieces, and I'm like, are the puzzle pieces supposed to be, well, we know, like, that all kind of ties back to their dad and stuff like that, but I'm also, obviously, like, and she picks up a blank piece, and I was like, is that supposed to represent Dr. Harrison no longer being alive, or what, you know? Because I think I remember the puzzle pieces thing coming up last season. I'm blanking on it, really. So I'm curious to see where things kind of go on that front. Obviously, Cliff is not going to stop until he gets to, you know, touch his grandson. Rouge is sticking around, which obviously does not work out for Rita. Larry's dealing with the whole Keek situation because it's like, cool, he's off doing his thing. So it's like, right, you've seen this bitter future where you all die and none of you know how you die because your future selves refuse to tell you what's what. And it's like, well, because they felt like you weren't ready. Once again, they had 20 years because this is the most self-loathing, psychologically complicated, like, group, and there's so much self-loathing going on in so many regards. So it's like, right, we know, like, the fact is what we were dealing with at that time, and we know us. No matter what advice we give ourselves, we're not going to listen. And once again, it's the journey more so than the destination. Well, if you don't take that journey on your own, it's not like, right, someone could give you advice 1,000 times, and until you're ready to listen to it, you know, it doesn't matter how much they say it to you over and over again because you're not going to, you kind of have to go through it yourself. You have to, once again, you have to burn your hand on the stove before you go like, yeah, don't do that again. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like, yes, that's a very like simple like version of it. And obviously there's a more, it's not just that easy. There's complexity to it, but like using a very simple example would be that, you know? So with the butt apocalypse around the corner, and apparently Kip and his people, apparently they've known that this was coming as a prophecy. I'm like, are they going to do anything about it? Did they attempt to try and stop it, and did they fail as well? Or is this just going to be a situation of, I don't know. I mean, once again, like, I think they kind of talked about the overarching world because, like, Madame Rouge ended up being, like, a spokesperson to try and, like, I think, like, get some peace started between the Butts and humans, but I guess that didn't work out because they mainly focus on Cloventon, the town, so like we don't know what the grander world looks like. I mean, I'm assuming it's just a thing of like, yeah, they've completely taken over. But then we get into the Immortus stuff at the very end, so I'm like, okay, because I was like, cause I figured the Butt stuff, because they are, which still weird to say, you know, innuendos and all that. But even though the Butt stuff, they I knew that was obviously it's in the trailer, but so I thought like the Immortus stuff was going to be the apocalypse, but I guess it's like, right, the Butt apocalypse is one thing and Immortus is another thing on the horizon, or maybe it's just kind of saying like, hey, time has kind of changed, maybe because the Doom Patrol knows what's happening, so time is shifted, or is the Butt apocalypse supposed to be the herald to Immortus? Does the Doom Patrol know about that? So, like, that's why I'm curious, like, did Kip vision the future Doom Patrol, or like I said, has things changed in his timeline just because they met their future selves? So, or I'm so curious to see ultimately where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, which there is another episode out. So it's going to be interesting to see where that ends up taking us continuing down this route. But very excited to have Doom Patrol back, ready to get into the fucking weirdness that is and has always been and continues to be this show. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.